All right, take it away, Sandra.
So, did you ever really love something, but you couldn't necessarily explain it to your friends, and then they all thought you were a weirdo? So, I love webcomics, even though, there's a lot of painful experiences along the way. You think that you're going to, read this comic for years and years and years, and then every so often it all goes to hell. So you do your best, you try to enjoy it, but the people making the comics, they put a lot of passion into it, and sometimes it all goes horribly wrong. There's a lot of gaps, and this is very similar to television. So Doctor Who, Sherlock Holmes, every so often, this kind of gap creates an opportunity for the community to all form and get together, because the kind of hiatuses you get in comics, this is Monster Pop. She went off for the summer for months and months and months, left all her readers in the comments panicking and trying to come together and, sharing stories. Tempt's Fate by Thunt of Goblins, he decided that he was going to leave this character in our hands and allow him to be killed if people didn't make enough donations. Dara O'Brien kind of has a very relevant comic quote with regards to computer games, where he says, "You can be bad at playing a video game and the video game will punish you and deny you access to the rest of the video game." And webcomics are a bit like that. You can kind of follow along for years, and sometimes the author will, pull this kind of trick on you, but we trust Thunt because you read his comic for years and he's a dungeon master, so you can forgive him. Dominic Deegan, a comic that I wouldn't say is like a bad user experience, but more of a kind of a meh user experience. It's not necessarily beautiful art, but he keeps going for years and years, and I read that comic for years and years and years just because he was so persistent. It's a bit like the Drudge Report. Started in 1996, one dude and an assistant, and now it's still going all these years later, and it's got 3 million readers. It's a bit like watching these kind of mavericks. It's a bit like watching Forrest Gump running backwards and forwards across America. It's not just about kind of the content, it's also about the creator. So all these horrible user experiences, sometimes you forgive them because it's part of a bigger story. You might want your sports team to win all the time, and sometimes that doesn't happen. So the pain, this man paid loads of money to go crying in an arena. A webcomic is a bit like that. Sometimes the pain of the suffering is bad for the individual, but it's really good for the group. So something that's a horrible experience for the individual, if it brings the group together, it could be good for the creator, it could be good for the long term. So this is Blind Springs, a comic where her advertising kind of encroaches in at the edges. This is Directions of Destiny, which shut down, and I never got to find out what happened in the big battle. This is something I would never recommend for someone to create as a user experience, but because it's an individual creating it, you give a bit of latitude. A corporation kind of get away with this sort of thing. This is Ava's Demon, an incredibly beautiful, cute kind of Pixar style with horrible violence. Like, it's really surprising. See how the ads kind of encroach way into it. So you have this opportunity to either forgive her and look at it and be horribly distracted by the ads, or use ad block and then feel terribly guilty. Girl Genius has this problem where if you're reading through their many thousands of pages worth of story, you're scrolling and clicking and scrolling, and it's awful. So you might decide to buy their book. So it's bad for you because you either have to shell out money or do all your clicking and scrolling. It's great for them because they can get a bit of financial security. But what you really want as a reader of webcomics and as a user of webcomics is you want your creator to go off and create more stuff. So similarly, you might buy an itchy, scratchy, crappy band t-shirt, not because you're naked, but just because you want them to make more music for you. So it's that similar kind of parallel. This is Homestuck, very famous webcomic. It's 8,000 million pages long. If you start now, you won't be finished before Christmas. He has this tendency to go on hiatus for, up to a year. And so it creates this kind of very kind of hardcore fan base, because the gaps don't chase everyone away. They just trace away the kind of, the filthy casuals. The true believers stick around and dress up. Similarly, for the creator of Prequel, he has these long gaps, but the community will kind of tolerate it and sometimes even help him out. This is a little game that he made as part of his comic, but he had readers subscribing with kind of music and helping him with the graphics and stuff. So I'm not saying that necessarily we want to, stop fixing bad user experiences, but sometimes at the kernel of a bad user experience, there's some useful bits and pieces that we can take with us to the next thing. So.